Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to another review of The Bad Batch Season 2 here on Star Wars Lads. We are reviewing Episode 9 of Season 2, The Crossing. We are going to talk full spoilers about the latest episode of The Bad Batch Season 2. But before we do so, please hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel for continued Star Wars content. We're trying to get this video to about 30 likes, and we're trying to get to 1,500 subs here soon. Help us get to that goal. It would really mean a lot to us. Make sure you comment below and let us know what you thought of episode 9. All right, so we're going to talk full spoilers, like I said. So if you haven't seen the episode, make sure you watch it and then bookmark this video or save it to your favorites. Come back, watch it later. We're going to dive in. The first thing we should talk about, I think, is the direction that this episode goes. So we speculated last week. We got philosophical again, and we should have known. The crossing literally just means they are crossing the desert. Uh, that was it. Like they were crossing a canyon, walking through the desert. That was it. They get their ship stolen, and this episode goes back to the batch. It centers on the batch, but hey, at least it looks like we're getting another episode to follow this. That's kind of nice. Sanak, what did you think overall of episode 9, The Crossing?
It's not an episode that if it was simply a one off, I would have been pleased by. I think an episode like this at least gives me some hope, some optimism. It is a very simple story. They're just there to do some mining for Sid, and as we were talking about on off camera, there's a distinctly different vibe. The music from Kiner and his direction there, very Western inspired, very much like Western, abandoned on the edge of the frontier. It felt like you're building to something. I know, Liam, you were saying like it felt like maybe we're going on like some mission for like Echo or someone, or this is like a mine that's part of like something, not too much dialogue was going on. And then he says the line like, "Oh, this mission for Sid," and it's like, "Oh, okay, it's gonna be like one of those episodes." But there's some distinctly different things. Like, yeah, we get the crossing being a literal crossing. We also get like a almost like Lion King esque parade of animals rushing through, and that could have been the crossing in another way. Simple story or not, we did get to see some things are distinctly different, and I think that is at least what that music cue and everything else was indicating, just not necessarily something to be resolved in this first episode. A big thing for me that stood out was without Echo, there isn't someone to just be a balancing point. Wrecker and Tech have always been such distinctly different personalities. He is kind of like the brawn, and Tech is the brain. It's a natural rivalry, it's a national conflict that could have arisen a lot earlier, but has mostly been contained to just having little jibes and barbs that have been mostly friendly. But now here with Echo gone, it's like, well, now the floodgates are open. They're arguing from the start, and then when things go wrong and they have a cave in, it's just going back and forth, back and forth. And this is an episode where Tech and his whole personality kind of just being so methodical, being factual about things, and his tonality of delivering, which has always been accepted, is just rubbing everyone the wrong way. And especially Omega, who surprisingly in this episode, she's just very mopey. It's like this is maybe like the first signs of like a preteen, almost teenager Omega coming out of her. She's not the one who's like the Wesley Crusher of Star Trek Next Generation, like just jumping in to save the day and do whatever needs to be done. It's like more like I'm gonna do what I can do. I'm trying to be valuable. I understand that there will be limitations for me, but that's not even my issue anymore. My issue is that this family that we talk about so much, that we always say is there, it's separated, and not everyone is acknowledging that and buying into that dynamic. And that's just like a weight on her. And I really appreciated that. But regardless, we are gonna be following them next episode, and I'm very happy that even if there is only a few things going on here and it's a lot more subtle, it's going to actually develop into something bigger and hopefully a 3 episode arc. I would really appreciate that from the Bad Batch.
That would be awesome. I think something that really, makes this season start to feel like filler, and something that made Rebels feel like filler was when, because we don't do arcs, there's not things to look forward to every week. I think that's the main thing that sticks with you. Clone Wars, you could call certain arcs filler arcs because things don't change, right? We follow C3PO and R2D2 on the Nomad droids missions or stuff like that. There's distinctly uninteresting and like kind of unimportant arcs for the rest of Star Wars lore. But by dividing episodes into arcs, there was always something to look forward to. There was next episode was going to build on this one. By not doing that with the Bad Batch and not doing that with Rebels, a lot of times it made those episodes feel like, well, the only reason to really get excited for these episodes is because it's the Bad Batch or because it's Rebels. And if you're not enjoying the direction of the season, then we can definitely see why you wouldn't be excited for the next episode. And I think building off of a 7 and 8 that do have a little arc, it is nice to now jump into another arc, even if it is a Sid mission. I was definitely disappointed to see that it was going to be another Sid mission. And, especially I feel like even this season, there's even a more disconnect with the Sid missions. Like, we don't even get Sid. We're just in the middle of missions when we start these episodes a lot of times. Tech gets some more character development. We talked about this in episode 1. Tech and Echo were the ones that this season seemed to want to push because last season we got so much Hunter, who he was the main character. Hunter and Omega were the main characters. Crosshair was the main antagonist. And Wrecker was probably that fourth and built a rapport with Omega. And we see a lot of the show through Omega's eyes. And Omega really never had that connection with Tech or Echo. So by Echo leaving, we're almost getting a kind of off-screen development for Omega and Echo's relationship because Omega is so sad that he's left, but we haven't really seen them connect. This episode, we're starting to see those heart-to-hearts that we saw last season with Wrecker and Omega and Hunter and Omega now with Tech. And so I think those are really important moments. We're going to need some payoff here, I think. And I think the perfect way to do that is to have a follow-up episode where maybe Wrecker and Tech really learn from their mistakes or their bickering. And Omega's last words at the end of this episode were that, we're going to figure it out like we always do. So let's build on that. Let's see that in action. Let's see her and Tech, especially next episode, create some plan that's really going to help the Bad Batch succeed. But I think, yeah, there's one more thing we can talk about, and you started to discuss it there too. It's the final scene really with Sid. And so again, another Sid episode, but Sid doesn't even want to help the batch when they're stranded. And yes, it is a pretty dumb way to get stranded, get your ship stolen. Like, you don't have like a lock or something, you can't shut the door and not have somebody just come and take it. Like, that's something that's been in Star Wars forever, but nobody else's ship's gotten stolen. But anyway, Sid can't come help them or doesn't, can't be bothered to help them really. She doesn't necessarily say she can't. She just is all frustrated and irritated as she is. She's always annoyed by the batch. But the batch don't let her get away with it this time. They stick it back at her. She says she owes them one and faster when they help save her during the races. And they don't seem to be really having it this time. And I know Omega is kind of the one that always is going easy on Sid, but even she's a little frustrated with Sid. So, Sonic, do you think maybe next episode or whenever this arc ends, we see the last of the Bad Batch relationship with Sid?
I don't know if we'll see a total end because there were those things earlier in the season where it's hinted that maybe she could betray them, maybe she protects her own skin and divulges, four at this point Republic clone commandos, right, on the run. That's very valuable and could be strong collateral for her. So I don't think their relationship is done. There's a potential of her being replaced by like a fee or someone else to focus more on like treasure hunting instead of bounties as the fillers moving forward. And then eventually Sid comes back in a more plot based pivotal role to actually have some payoffs, to have some real characterization, to make this a slightly tragic relationship.
Yeah, I think you're right in the sense that this show has been built around the idea of these quests and the episodes turning into quests. Personally, you know, the ideal switch for me is if we miss Echo so much, why don't we all help Rex with his clone rescue missions? Why can't the batch be Rex's secret operatives that he sends on missions, even if it is just to get money for them or to get supplies for that? Like, it can be the same thing that they're doing for Sid, but if they're doing it for Rex, it feels a heck of a lot more important to the overall story and a bit more connected to the clone stuff. Maybe by the end of the season, we do make that switch. Maybe they're all in with Rex. I don't think, because we talked about last week, Echo's not going to just disappear and then only show up in like 2 episodes a season with Rex. We're going to get more Echo. It's just a matter of how, and I would love to see that. But I think that's going to conclude our review here of The Bad Batch, Season 2, Episode 9. Make sure you're commenting below and letting us know what you thought of this episode. Also, if you haven't yet, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't as well. Check out our tier list video we just posted yesterday. It's ranking all of the Star Wars TV seasons that we've seen completion of so far. And also check out our JFO streams on Fridays, as well as our prediction speculation, which will be up Friday mornings. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.